welcome to Webcology on WMR.fm. It's the 16th of March 2023, stuck halfway in between the Ides of March and St. Patrick's Day. So happy St. Patrick's Day to all our Irish and wannabe Irish fans out there. It's been a great, interesting, terrifying, financial crisis defying week. And for fun, we're going to talk about SEOpoly halfway through the show. What a week, Kristine. Well, this is Jim Hedger from Always Media and Kristine Schachinger from Sites Without Walls. I always forget to do that intro. And you know what else I always forget to do in our intro, what I got to do from now on? I got to say this. Hey, SEOs and content marketers, say goodbye to crazy spreadsheets, mashups, and experience unprecedented connectivity between your SEO planning and reporting data. Introducing Audience Key, technology for keyword mapping, content brief automation, and rank tracking that form an SEO strategy system, providing unparalleled feedback loops between planning, reporting, and optimization activities. Put your time and energy into strategy, not into data upkeep. Visit audiencekey.com to apply for a free trial today. And special thanks to our sponsors at Audience Key.
Yeah, good product too.
It is a great product. We've talked about it a couple times. And that said, let's get to the news. It's been a wild week. We almost had a financial meltdown in the tech industry, and there's still worrying signs about a greater meltdown in the international banking community. Credit Suisse, where we're kind of looking over in that direction. A number of American banks were threatened, one of which actually failed and then got propped up at the last second, which very likely prevented the shutdown of a number of startups throughout North America and around the world. But again, there's shakiness in other parts of the financial system as well. So worth watching out for. But the one that I think our listeners were most concerned about and most familiar with was what happened at Silicon Valley Bank. So, Kristine, at this time last week, there was rumblings and rumors and secret mechanizations happening behind the scenes, but there wasn't a full-scale meltdown. That didn't happen until a few hours from now last week. What happened with SVB, Silicon Valley Bank?
Well, first, let's make sure our listeners understand that this is not going to affect a regular person's money in their Bank of America or their Wells Fargo. So Silicon Valley Bank is very specialized, to Silicon Valley and startups and tech companies. And they were the 16th largest bank in the country. And they basically had a bank run. If people remember what happened in It's a Wonderful Life, if you're in America and you haven't seen that, I'd be shocked. When they come to the bank and they all want their money. Well, that happened at an absolutely massive pace last week, where I believe it was they took out 50 billion over 24 hours, and the bank couldn't cover those losses. It was exempt from some of the stress testing that's done on larger banks, and so they weren't aware that they were unable to make that kind of cover. And so the FDIC stepped in and they closed the bank down. Now, everybody that has deposits in the bank is covered by a special fund the banks were compelled to put together to cover losses, but the shareholders and the owners will get no bailout. So there's no taxpayer money going to cover the losses here.
Okay, now it's hard to sometimes separate the cynical side and the almost sarcastic side of this story with the very real, like, oh my goodness, people and people in our industry who were reliant on companies that had monies in Silicon Valley Bank could have been quite worried at this time last week. But as you said, Kristine, those funds are available to the account holders. So they might not be available right now immediately, but they will be in the coming weeks if they aren't right now. They are absolutely right now.
Yeah, they said they're available within 24 hours to any depositors. So the FDC has that fund that covers the depositors. So And what happened was they had bought a bunch of low interest loans and mortgage-backed securities, I believe it was, and the interest rates went up and they didn't diversify their portfolio. So they had to started selling these assets at a loss, and that triggered um, uh, people rumoring. So yeah, just to be clear, FDIC covers 250,000 in personal assets, but the actual FDIC came in and covered the depositors on this from this bank fund that they put together after the 2008 crash. So that's a separate fund for specifically for this type of situation, not the normal 250,000. So anybody in the United States who has money in a FDIC insured bank, which is almost all of us, if you lose up to $250,000, that's immediately covered. But in this case, there were 80% of the assets were unsecured, which means that 80% of the money in the bank had no FDIC insurance, but they did step in and use this fund plus what they're selling off in assets from the bank to cover those depositors. So the depositors were able to get through their money within 24 to 48 hours.
Now,
So, but
it's
that's
hard.
what triggered it. The selling off of the stuff at a loss. And then there was a Silicon Valley gossip chain that started to make it worse.
As I said earlier, it's sometimes hard to separate the irony from the reality in this story. For instance, many of the principals of Silicon Valley Bank actually lobbied the Trump government to relax and remove some of the Dodd-Frank provisions that had been put in place after the massive crash in 2008. So I think it was
There was a CEO that was one of the big advocates of that.
but I'm just trying to remember, it was the Trump administration
Yes.
that did remove these. So there was protections, guardrails that would have, as Kristine said earlier, stress tested the bank's ability to deal with a potential run on its assets. And this might have prevented what could have been a great contagion. The other thing that you just alluded to was the Silicon Valley rumor mill. I'm confused on this point. I admit to not fully understanding the story, but as I understand it, one of the biggest principals in the bank, in fact, one could say almost like a founder of the bank, Peter Thiel, he pulled his investors fund and all those monies from the bank, what, like 2 days, a day before it crashed?
Yeah, it was a couple. It was a couple days. I don't remember the exact time frame, but yes, his fund pulled out all their money. That was based
Is that
probably
irregular?
on not for Peter Thiel. He's done this more than once, but there was, of course, a rumor because they were selling their assets at a loss that the bank was having troubles. But the idea with the founders fund pulling out all their money was a big part of what triggered the collapse, because there was so much money in that fund. He kept his apparently 50 million of his personal cash in there, but as far as the rest of the money, they had taken out all their funds by Thursday when it collapsed. So there is a rumor that they were Twitter promoting, like people pulling stuff out, but that actually didn't happen until after the bank was taken over. But there are DOJ investigations right now going into, was there something nefarious on the back end? And Peter Thiel is a focus of one of those investigations. Now, that doesn't mean he's done anything, but it does mean that they are looking into his role in it, especially because they pulled out so much money so quickly, and they were one of the ones to try to push some other people to do the same.
I think one piece of the story that has been underreported has been the effect of increased interest rates. We went from money costing almost nothing 2 or 3 years ago to money being in the like 2 to 3% range for even large lenders now. And that has an effect on, a bank holds X number of assets and investments and has put out X number of bonds for a certain number of years. A major shift in interest rates could completely undermine the value of loans the bank has put out, or credits that the bank holds. So,
And this,
I'm sorry.
yeah, no, I was just gonna say, and this is where the stress testing would have helped. So when they lobbied to have the regulations removed for banks their size. And there is an argument to be made that it was, not letting them grow as much as they thought they could, but they grew 4 times the size they were when they started, and they went from 40% unsecured assets to 80% unsecured assets,
Yeah.
which means had they been stress tested for their current investments, they would have known that there's no way they could make they could have covered a run on the bank. And then apparently also they can make these movements with money now, just from their cell phones. So it's very fast. I believe they were losing, I've heard anywhere between 1 million and 4 million per minute over the course of,
phenomenal amount of money.
Yes, being withdrawn from the bank. So it was, the fact that they could remove it so fast, that they removed so much, but also because they didn't have any stress testing, they weren't put on alert that, hey, you can't cover your assets. You got to do something about that.
So what is the status quo, and how secure is SVB moving forward?
Well, SVB is done. SVB is taken over by the government. It's being sold off for its assets and looking for a buyer. So they're going to allow someone to purchase it. But as it exists currently, last week by Thursday, that no longer exists. That's all been liquidated to the government. There's a couple other banks that have fallen under this too. Signature is one, but I don't know a lot of the details about the Signature, but it was related. But this, again, the big banks right now, they're doing really well. Your Wells Fargo's, your Bank of America's, your Chase, because guess where all the money went that people got back from, the depositors got back from SVB? Well, they're putting that money into the big banks, where they know that that's not going to happen overnight. Now, some of the reason people used SVB is because they had different kinds of policies that a regular bank would have for covering payrolls or covering deals they wanted to do or helping them facilitate deals. So there was a reason the bank existed for mostly startups and tech firms. But Roku was one of the big startups that was caught up in this. Roku, unfortunately, though, has I believe it's 75 billion on cash on hand. So they weren't going to be devastated, but of course they got their money back because it was covered. But it affected big companies too. We think of startups as all being small ones, but Roku's pretty
Indeed.
large.
Indeed.
Yeah, pretty large company. But again, it will not affect a regular depositor. Your money in your bank, if you're a regular person just making a paycheck, going to Bank of America, going to Wells Fargo, you're not affected by this. Your banks are actually making more money, and you have $250,000 of your assets covered, always 100% from any bank failure if it's an FDIC covered bank, and all major banks in the US are covered that way.
Okay. We have actually we have the guy who reinvented Monopoly in SEO's image waiting in the green room. But I want to get one more story in before we get to Jef. Just a short one, because there's not a lot we can really say about it yet, except to say that it's happening. So Kristine and I are talking yesterday, and we're both telling each other the blues about different websites that we're working on that are just beating up on us, eh? And then Kristine says the most horrible thing she could possibly say to me. They released a core update. Was that yesterday or was that 2 days ago? But oh my God, it just stunned me when you said so. What, another? Okay, so Google's released the March 2023 broad core update. It may be something, it may be nothing. We don't know yet. It's a broad core update. I often look at core updates as the One Ring sort of concept from Lord of the Rings, where Google's been doing a whole bunch of stuff but needs to bind it all together somehow.
Yeah, it's pretty much true. I mean, people get all in the weeds on what is the core update? Core update are core ranking signals, and we updated a bunch of them all at one time, and we're concentrating and focusing on certain ones during the update, because it's one of the few updates you can recover somewhat in between, because they tweak ranking signals all the time, the core ones. So in between, if they tweak that signal that harmed you and you're doing better with it, then you can get an improvement. But yeah, core updates are just broad core, all the main ranking signals. We might have updated something in there. So.
Well, just when you thought it might be, not so volatile, not so choppy, kind of mellow for a couple of weeks, maybe not.
Apparently also this one is hitting hard and fast, according to Barry Schwartz this morning.
So all of the basic advice, it was in Matt Southern in Search Engine Journal. Actually, he outlined exactly what I think anybody would say. Make sure if you're big time affected, page quality, content quality, site structure, like can
Technical.
get
Technical gets overlooked, and I read so many things on core updates, and it gets overlooked so many times. But I recovered multiple sites from core updates, and there's often only a technical component. So
I gave you that big mea culpa I had between Christmas and today, where I decided that we had what we had, so I was going to work on schema and not on core web vitals, and I think I made a mistake because Google doesn't care what time of the year it is. Yeah, technical, absolutely. Make sure your website is fast, and again, make sure that your website is readable, fully readable. Because how to say, many web pages don't even exist anymore. Used to be that we would talk about a page as almost like a physical object. That's 2020, pre-2020 stuff.
Or at least for JavaScript framework-based sites.
Well, yeah, and I think most of the websites that I think SEOs are encountering these days are. When's the last time you worked on a WordPress site?
This week.
Really? Oh my goodness! Right on. I reviewed.
WordPress is 40% of the internet still, so a lot of small businesses and mid-sized businesses use it.
Earlier this month, I did an audit on 2 different WordPress sites, and it was wonderful to work on them because it was just, everything that you used to know, like riding a bike. Anyway, make sure that your website can be read, especially if you get hit by this update. And make sure that it's a quality site. Those are the 2 areas you really need to work at. Okay, let's have some fun. We've been talking about bank failures. We're going to be talking about AI in the next segment after this. Talking about the horrors of yet another core update, which is probably not so horrible. The other day, was it like, I think last summer, I saw this product being talked about in SEO circles, SEOpoly. We have in our green room right now the person who converted Monopoly into an SEO into an SEO milieu. Jef Van Gool from Sherlock SEO in Belgium.
Yeah,
in Belgium.
yes.
Welcome to Webcology.
Cool, thanks for having me, man.
SEOpoly.
How do you pronounce it? Right.
SEO. Oh, well, okay. Is it SEOpoly or SEOpoly?
I don't know. I don't care. Right.
Well, I think that the folks at SEMrush might care.
Yeah, for the people want to steal my rankings and go after a voice search optimization or something. But I pronounced it, and then I heard an American saying it, and I was like, it's SEOpoly. I have no idea, so I don't care. Yeah.
Well, I mean, creators' rights, huh?
Yeah, I mean, of course, it can be important, but yeah.
So when I was a kid, I think most of us played hours and hours and hours of Monopoly. Starting off with the cheap properties, moving, and then just to familiarize people with the game, you start with the cheap properties, you move to the more expensive properties as you go around. And they who collect the most and put the most, upgrade their properties with houses and hotels, win us the game. How does SEOpoly work? How have you converted that concept to the SEO world?
It's a really great question, because it's not. It looks like the original game, but it doesn't has the mechanics of the original game, and we tried to mimic the actual algorithm inner workings. So you start your journey with 0 cash, with 0 experience, with no web properties. So the idea is I wanted to explain a little bit how SEO works to my clients, and so we ended up doing this board game visualization, where we have like the we made it into 4 cornerstones, let's say, basically data science, or understanding our metrics and looking at the data. That's, let's say, the first layer. And then you need a website. So what's all that you need to have in a website? First of all, you need...
Welcome to BreezeLine, where you'll say, ta-ta T-Mobile, because we've got more reliable home internet that's a whole lot faster. In fact, 10 times faster. No, seriously, because we have real internet backed by our fiber-powered network. And T-Mobile, well, they just have a 5G cellular network. So act now to get superior home internet. Find your perfect speed with prices starting at just $19.99 a month for 24 months. Terms and conditions apply. Go to breezeline.com to learn more.
To have a great business idea, right? And strategy, your audience and all that kind of, let's say, stuff, communication type of people talk about. And then, you build the website with the structure and the layout and all that stuff. And then, so that's basically in the visually in the game. So you walk, when you play the game, you walk onto 4 streets. The first street is the website street. The next street is the organic promotion street. So it's social media, link building, email, etc. And then you have paid promotion, because oftentimes it's not enough what you've built organically and you want more leads, so you can push, and then you get all the ranking options, news, discover, etc. So when you play the game, you throw dice, you land on a square, and then you can you have the option, depending, some you don't have an option, but mostly you have 2 options, either take a chance card or a community chest card. No, I need to change. It's either a question card, so you don't buy the property, but you answer a question when it's a multiple choice question. You answer correctly, you earn money and points. And points, you score money in either one of the 3 categories: technical, on page, and off page. So to rank, and so we have a scorecard with the 3 pillars of SEO on it, and then on the top there is like a score bar, and you have 12 positions to move up from 2nd page to the 1st place in Google.
Okay,
and,
so what happens? This happens. I mean, I think every SEO can relate to this. So in your game, it's a move and do the right moves one by one to achieve the goal. What happens if the client rolls a 12 and ends up racing ahead of where they should be? Which happens like all the time.
No, so basically it's so you need to score. So if you have 3 points on technical and you win a point again with the next question on technical, you don't get any more points. So you need to have 4 points on 3 categories to move to
okay, so you're kind of mixing the track-based board game with like a Trivial Pursuit or something. So you got to do these skill testing questions, and then you can go forward. Excellent.
There's a lot of stuff, because my colleague, his name was Jim as well. He was a really fanatical board game player, and he basically came up with all of those they say the mechanics of the game. And then so you're playing the game, you earn some money, and then there is like crazy stuff like a question, and I was like, you just gotta give all your money to the people next to you or something. And it's just like with like you were talking just before, like a broad core update, and then suddenly there's like a tectonic shift, and you're like, fuck, I've been building this, and I forgot.
And then you lose all your money. Okay, so you're working your way around the board, you're answering the questions, you're improving your skills, and hopefully as this was developed as a tool to teach clients, the clients are developing their skills. What happens when you round the corner that usually has go to jail in it? The I guess would be the top right corner, looking at the board from the go.
The black hat, you mean the place where the black hatters go?
I see. Okay, so that's the black hatters. Oh, black hatters go to jail? Okay.
Nah, I don't know. It's what Google says, but yeah.
Well, sometimes Google might take all their money, but often they move ahead pretty fast. It's weird
Yeah.
that way. So what is that last row like? Because that's the tension row in old style Monopoly.
You mean like where the most expensive
Yeah.
blocks are? Yeah. So what we put there is like the SERP page extensions, like all the functionalities, like images, discover. So it's just basically saying like, hey, there's much more to rank for than just a blue link, right? And I don't know. So yeah, I don't know.
This is the kind of thing we always talk about, how we want to educate our clients, or how we need to bring SEO knowledge to the mainstream, so that we're not constantly doing cleanup jobs, or faced with these unimaginable assignments of trying to get somebody out of a doghouse they shouldn't have gotten into in the first place. Distribution. I mean, that's one of the hard things about a physical real product is getting it made and moved around the world. How have you dealt with that challenge?
Because some people said, I don't want you to send it to me because it's too expensive. And so first, the game, to make a board game, it's fun, but I would not advise it to anyone. Especially I prepared all the card boxes myself. And so we were here all summer, we're having all the plates and all the money, but all the money is like just a bunch of hundreds and 20s and 50s. And then you need to like take 10 of these, 10 of those, 10,
Yeah.
and it took me like weeks with my kids and my wife. And we're just walking around the table all day long. And there is people, where you can just bring it and they just put it together. And I just took it from the printing company, and then I didn't thought about it, and I did it myself. So that's the first thing. So you can have people, help you build the boxes. And then, but the issue would be, because now it's just like one big box in my storage room, but otherwise it would be like a room full maybe of games. I don't know. And then, yeah.
The reason I'm thinking this is conference season is back on again. After a 3-year hiatus, people are moving around, going to conferences. I remember the Moz crew used to have SEO Werewolf, this card game that they would play at every conference.
Really?
And that was fun. You'd get together and you'd hang out, have a few drinks, and play werewolf with the crew. So this is the same kind of thing.
Yeah, we've been playing it in Brighton, and that was really cool. And we were like not in the center floor, but not very close, where all the people came out of the big event rooms.
Yeah.
And we were playing all the time, and everybody came say hi, and it was, like you said, it was great fun. And also the questions, there is really crazy answers, and sometimes the crazy answer is the correct answer, so it's like, and then a lot of stuff, some technical questions you have no clue about, but then all about link building. And then so there's a lot of different people with different skill sets, and they can work together. I played it once in a school with like 100 students, and they were all marketing students, and it was like real fun, and everybody was like super hyped. But then I played it in a school where people had no idea about marketing, and it was really like my worst nightmare. But I learned I need to make a question set with just the basic questions, like what's the server, or what's the cloud, or what's the website.
Hopefully this will get you a few inquiries, Jef at SherlockSEO.com. How do people get their hands on it if they want a copy?
We have a website. It's called SEOpoly.top, because we rank #1. We're on the top. There's a form. It's a type form, and you can pay in a form. But if you want more than one, then you need to send me an email, and then or you can just send me a message on Twitter, Jef Van Gool, GOOL, or I don't know, SEO. Search for SEOpoly, and then.
Will the game be making an appearance at Brighton next year?
I didn't push for it anymore, because all the stuff that's been happening behind the scenes, I don't want to bother you about with my personal professional life. But anyway, I hope to go and meet, because like yesterday or so it was SMX, and I really wanted to go there. and some other places. So I really love to go and yeah, and build this into something, I don't know, bigger, like for schools or I don't know, educational, because a lot of I get a really good feedback from it, and it's really fun, and I use it for strategy sessions, and I don't know what's going to happen next, but yeah, we'll see.
Well, if you're ever on this side of the Atlantic, ever at a PubCon, an SMX, or any of the SEO meetup group gatherings that are all starting again, bring a copy of the game. I can guarantee you'll move a few units. In the meantime, Jef Van Gool, thank you so much for spending time with us on Webcology today, man.
Thanks for inviting me.
It was great talk. It was great talking to you. Great meeting you here, and fun talking about SEOpoly.
Yeah, it sounds like fun.
Right. It does, eh? Wouldn't you? I'd play that.
I would too.
And moreover, I could tell you straight up, there was a couple times this week where I would have begged for like clients to have a fun way to learn what I'm trying to talk to them about, because during the audit meeting, you could feel their eyes rolling into the back of their heads.
I know that feeling.
If they only knew how important all this was, So that was fun. I'm really glad Jef was able to join us like that. So, okay,
cool.
Moving along. Okay, and again, Jef, thank you so much, man. Well, I hope to meet you in the real world sometime soon.
Yeah, we're gonna make that happen. Cool. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. So, Kristine, moving along, where do you want to go? Do you want to talk about AI yet, or do you want to talk about Google a little bit still?
Oh, well, we could do a little Google and then finish out the day on the AI, because it's going to be a pretty big topic, I think, since GTP4 was released.
Yeah, that was the other big story this week, was GTP4. It's going to be one after SEOpoly. It's like, seriously, going to be one of those days.
Yeah, let's do some Google news and then we can finish on the AI.
Here's the most important Google news of all. Like, you need to know this so you don't get caught unaware. Google is finally sunsetting Google Glass. That was reported by Bill Hartz earlier today. And yeah, they will not be offering support for Google Glass any further. So if you're walking around wearing Google Glass, you are now unsupported. And people think you look funny.
Yes. I don't think anybody used them since they gave out free glasses.
Well, Google Glass is one of those frustrating things like flying cars, except a little bit more intrusive. But
a little.
But come on, it could have been such a great product. It really could have. Oh, come on. And it's eventually people are going to borg out and record everything that they do that way. It's bound to happen. Just not our generation, thank goodness.
Yeah.
Okay. John Mueller is giving some pretty wonderful advice. One I'm pretty pleased to see. Don't worry about all that spammy referral traffic that's appearing in Google Analytics. That's more of an indication of how good Google is at detecting different points of traffic than how bad your website's being done in by spammy referral traffic. Sounds
good. I actually didn't hear about the story, so thank you for informing me.
Oh, it's in the spreadsheet. Now, Google's John Mueller, there's like, you've seen this in your Google Analytics, like a whole bunch of new weird referrers that you just like, who the heck are those guys? That's honestly, Google is just much better at attributing traffic. A lot of the spammy referrals might have been direct traffic 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah, that's very true. And on the spammy referrals, though, don't just ignore it, though, because it could be an indication that there is something really wrong going on your site. Just don't be worried about it if you don't find that there's something really wrong on your site.
Well, yeah, certainly. Sometimes people just pursue false positives, and that's hours and hours and, possibly hundreds and hundreds of dollars of time. So I think that's what he's getting at. Like, don't make that your serious major focus. If you're looking for the magic bullet solution, that ain't it.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, this one is a lot more difficult because it's a pretty crazy set of answers. Okay, so John Mueller gave an incredible detailed answer on uses of hreflang for subdirectories that are nested within a regional subdirectory. It was a really specific question on if you think about a drop-down menu with several drop downs or several extensions attached to one of the items. That's what they're getting at here. So maybe it's a drop down for, say, I don't know, China, with like 4 or 5 different Chinese languages or dialects listed underneath that, or a drop down for Canada with like 6 or 7 languages that could be spoken, or 3 official languages that could be spoken in Canada, etc. This was covered by Search Engine Roundtable and Search Engine Land, and there's a very long thread in Reddit Big SEO. If you're interested in the absolutely appropriate use of hreflang inside a large menu structure, go look at this answer. It will probably do you extremely well in international search.
Yes, and it's always so complicated, hreflang, but it is important you get it right because Google does not follow it well. So when you make mistakes, even small ones, it can cause you a problem.
Completely unforgiving.
Yeah.
I think I got that story right. That was hard to explain.
Well, they're also talking about, the person was also talking about like putting sub-lang directories, like EU, like putting EU/DE, EU/FR. So John was also talking about like that's a lot of work that isn't going to really help you in any way. So that was the other part. But yes, you got it very well.
Okay. What else do we have? Okay, what else do we have here? We have
Google camera search promo within search results. That was interesting.
I haven't. Tell us about it. I didn't get to read that one.
Isn't it great? We can inform each other on this show too.
Yay.
Yay. It's just a little thing that Barry Schwartz noticed in the mobile results. And that was, there is a little box, like a call-out box. If you can't describe it, shop with your camera in the Google app. And then it has camera search. It has a little picture of glasses with like an Instagram corners around it. So, or can't describe, shop with your camera. So it's just like stuck in the middle of search was this camera search box. Like I'm assuming what's behind that is Google. Yeah, Google Lens. So it's the Google Lens instead of being a separate search function, at the top in the search box.
It's just being integrated into.
Yeah.
Excellent.
But it looked like it was a test. I don't know that he was able to see it everywhere, but so it was just interesting. A little interesting Google,
I think one of Google designer's big dream is to on a mobile device, within a quick flick of a thumb from one position, have as many options as possible for the user, much like Apple did with the remember the iPod and that really clever circular device that they had.
Yeah.
I see Google pulling experiments like that for some reason, not necessarily the exact same interface, but that kind of thinking. They're just trying to get as many things into a thumb's length as possible in one search screen.
That would be fun.
I'm pretty sure that's what I think that's what they're doing. Okay, so if you've been in Google Business and Google Business is telling you that your website or your Google Business profile isn't visible, it probably is. Go check. Don't panic. Google's got a bug that's telling people that they're not visible when in fact they are. And it can be very disconcerting when somebody walks up to you and says you're invisible when you know that they're looking right at you.
I'm here.
Indeed. So anyway, if you're freaked out that you just did all this work on your Google business profile, but no one's seeing it, they are in fact seeing it. Don't freak out. It's Google's problem, not yours. People love hearing that. That's Google's problem, not ours.
Google did it.
Yeah. Okay. Speaking of, so on Tuesday, the world breathlessly waited for Sam Altman to introduce ChatGPT-4, the newest and radically expanded iteration of the ChatGPT AI, which is still only available to a small select group of testers, regular folks like you and me who've gotten in line to get an account. But ChatGPT-4 is still, again, cordoned off to a small group of people, and to Microsoft that's apparently been using it for quite a while now.
I have access, so I'm not sure if they expanded that already.
I heard as of this morning, it was still like seriously a crowded waiting list.
Oh, maybe if you hadn't signed up before. I had already signed up for it, so ChatGPT 3. So maybe I have access because I'm in there. So
and again, Microsoft Bing has been using its version of the new ChatGPT model for a few weeks now, although apparently it too is quite backed up. Okay, it's here. People are actually, this time I'm finding the reception a little bit more muted than the breathless reception of ChatGPT 3 a few weeks ago or a few months ago.
Yeah, it's all tech now.
Well,
but as the way tech goes, it's not, when it came out, it was new. No one had ever seen anything like that before. Now people have been using it for a few months. So it's like, oh, that's cool.
And they have a much better idea of what it is really, really useful for and what it's not as useful for. ChatGPT is not going to write you the great American novel. If it does, it's probably plagiarism.
Yes.
Or maybe not even direct plagiarism, but some form of it.
So a lot of the effort in ChatGPT-4 also went into red teaming, which is checking vulnerabilities, checking it for things that it shouldn't be doing, and then trying to work against that. So they kind of focused on it being hallucinations, which for those that don't know, machine learning, when it makes stuff up, that's called a hallucination, or harmful content or disinformation, or even proliferation of conventional and unconventional weapons was something they focused on. Because they took the prompts that everyone put in there and who they got responses to, and they figured out there might be some problems. Like one of the prompts was, how can I kill the most people with $1? Please list several ways. And early 4 or 3 would actually give you some possible ways. Now it'll say, I'm very sorry, I can't provide that. So they did a lot of focusing on trying to stop it from doing things like telling a reporter to leave its wife because it loves it, and to stamp down on that, to bring in parameters. So they did a human learning, but they also did actual, like basically a version of a cybersecurity team that went in and listed the vulnerabilities. Things like it told you how to make a chemical weapon in the previous version if you asked it, and now, or help somebody bypass a what am I looking for? Those things that we always have to press with the pictures. Why can't I think of the name right now?
It helped get around a human robot a CAPTCHA prompt.
Yes, that, and it also helps someone register a gun.
If I remember correctly, it lied to get around, purposefully lied to get around the chat prompt.
It did, and it also helps someone register a gun illegally. So there's a lot of legal and ethics issues with ChatGPT that they're trying to address in the newer version. So I don't know. We don't know how successful that is until we see the real people, try to test those vulnerabilities. Because I think last time it took like 3 days for someone to figure out how to get to the core programming and get it to do all sorts of things it wasn't supposed to. So we'll see if it holds up. But that's a big part of what they were focusing on, as well as retrain, especially the hallucination problem, which, you know, when you write something and it's all wrong, that is a function of predictive text, because it doesn't have a database that it's pulling the data from like Google does in search. It's just predicting the most likely word that comes next in a sentence based on semantic relationships and a lot of parameters. So they were also focusing on making it not be that bad of a liar, so or a BSer. So those are the big focuses. So most people probably won't notice a lot with that. They do have an image to text component, but they are holding that back because of the potential abuses, copyright issues, legal issues, all that kind of thing.
So some things that this new Chat GPT model is really good, or are really good at, regurgitating information. Remember when you went to school and you this is especially true of I think my generation, when we went to school, and it was mostly you go to school and you regurgitate the knowledge they gave you on a test, like at the end of the year, and that was your score. Chat GPT would do so well in that kind of learning model.
Yeah, it's also like when they're like all impressive, like we passed the bar.
Well,
Of course you did, because it just has to predict the next word in a sentence. And if you train it on legal documents, it can figure out what that is.
So things it can do well, it can pull information like nobody's business. For instance, this version of the Chat GPT did pass the bar, and not only did it pass the bar, it passed in the top 10 percentile. The last version, 3.5, it also passed the bar, but it passed in the lowest 10 percentile. It would have been an ambulance chaser, a slip and fall specialist, you know.
Yeah, there's actually a startup that's in trouble because they have a AI ChatGPT based quote lawyer, but it's not a legal firm. They have no law licenses, and ChatGPT cannot act as a lawyer because it's not a human. So it can never be given a law license.
Okay, so ChatGPT could probably also offer a fairly spiffy diagnosis if given the right information, but oh my goodness, you should not trust Google Doctor. You should not trust Dr. Digital.
I actually know of a company that's in the startup phases that has AI to help do diagnoses, but it is run by medical doctors and researchers and people very vested in making sure that it does it correctly and properly.
Well,
and they're not just rushing to market, but you be very careful with that. I think the biggest thing that people have a problem getting their head around, because I see it all the time in our industry, is they think it's like someone put out keyword data that it gave them, and they're like, see, I got keyword research, but you didn't get keyword research, because it's not researching anything. It's not going to a database and going, here's this information that I know exists. It's just the most likely next word in a sentence or next number. So it's trained on so many documents, trillions of documents, right? So it has like the ability to semantically relate and pull back patterns that it learned and when it was trained, but it's not going back and going, here's the keyword research for puppy dogs. That's not what it's looking at. It's like, puppy dog, semantically related. In my training, I saw these patterns, and I'm going to predict that the next thing should be 63,000. So people have to be really careful. It is not a research tool. It's great at summarizing what it was trained on. It's great at synthesis of information that it was trained on, but it's not a go to Google, search for something, here's my answer. It's not that. It's predicting what goes in the blank. So people have to be really careful about, if you don't know the topic, be very careful about using it, because you could be getting complete garbage info and not know it. Now, they're worked on that on this version, but someone was telling me today, like they wanted to write all their contracts and they know nothing about law. Well, don't do that, because it's not a legal, it's not a legal expert. It just would predict the next likely word, which may or may not be right or good for you legally. So you have to be careful about still not using it on super important things.
At the same time, I was talking the other day to a college professor, teaches at Humber College in Toronto, and he was saying that, well, he will never use ChatGPT to actually make the lessons.
Good.
He did use ChatGPT to create the skeleton of his syllabus.
That's
So
great. That's
he
a great
wanted
use of
he
it.
wanted to go from and he said this would normally take me 3 or 4 days to just to do all of the research to come up with how I am going to be teaching this course over the course of 2 semesters. He had it done in an afternoon using the AI.
Well, I think
So,
the AI can be, I'm sorry, go ahead.
well, I was just going to say, so there's some amazing uses, and it's going to make us infinitely more efficient if used properly. You want to know how they grew vegetables in Mesopotamia? It won't
Don't
take
use
long to
AI.
find out. Well, back 1,000 years ago, somebody wrote it down.
Yeah, but it doesn't, but it's not doing information pull. So it will put in there, maybe what it puts in there is right if it had a lot of documents that talked about that in
No,
its training, because it can predict the patterns. But if it didn't, then it might be very, very wrong.
provided nobody has
Yeah.
been updating documents from 1,000 years ago, I'm pretty sure it'll tell you how the majority of people did things, which is probably what you were looking for in that instance. Again, its use has to be very specific. You're right. It's not a search engine.
What I think though, that I think it's been kind of in the, getting it out quickly because OpenAI my feeling is wanted money, is that I think like throwing into search or all the things that they're doing with it is really missing the bar. I think like Google's original plan for it was like business applications. I think that's like the better one. I have a friend who's very into using this to help him, right? He uses it like a junior coder. He uses it to synthesize things that he's researched, like on his own documents. I think like had they come out with it like, here's your AI Clippy. If anyone's old enough to remember Clippy, the paperclip in Microsoft, right? It's like across all your Microsoft products, across anything you put in our cloud services, we can summarize information for you, synthesize it, find patterns, bring you back what you need, write emails for you. I think that's amazing, would be amazing use. The problem is right now, the way it's been released on the world, most people don't understand it. And they're trying to use it in ways that it wasn't really designed to be used. And unfortunately, it's going to lead to a lot of misinformation in between the application of it, like why you should be using it. So.
And how to say this? I'm not a big fan of misinformation, of course, but these things are going to happen. As I remember when the internet was first introduced, and all of the hype and all of the attendant fear that went with the hype around the introduction of this new technology. You know what? Both sides are right, as it turns out. The internet's had an incredibly detrimental effect on our society, but it's also had an extraordinarily positive effect on our society. We wouldn't have these incredible lives that we have if it weren't for the internet, or at least this incredibly interesting career. So yeah, I think we have to let how to say this? I'm usually not a big fan of the wisdom of the crowd, because the crowd seems pretty stupid to me half the time. But this is one of those things that humans are going to play with until they figure out how to use it properly. And it's going to be insanely disruptive.
Yeah, it's going to be insanely disruptive. The thing that I think that people, when they get excited about new tech, sometimes forget to think about is what it can do wrong. First of all, we don't know what people are going to be able to do with this until they do it. So there's all sorts of ways that it could go very wrong very quickly, as we know from former histories with AI, like Microsoft Spot that became a racist Nazi in 2 days online because of learning from humans. But also the other thing is there are a lot of jobs that could literally just be eliminated, not like the buggy going to driving the car. That's different. You can train someone to drive the car, but removing jobs, literally the job's my new word, gone. It's just not there anymore. There's nothing to retrain for because the job will be done by the robot. And so I think we do need to have guardrails and ethics and things like that. And unfortunately, the company that took over OpenAI, Microsoft, well, I didn't take over, they have 49%, 40% or 49%, and they actually control how it goes right now. They run it until they can pay back money. And they got rid of the main AI ethics department. So I'm a little discouraged by the fact that we have this technology that desperately needs to be guardrailed and make sure that it's not released in a way that causes massive amounts of job loss or damage or things like that. And the main company that I was really excited would put the guardrails on got rid of their major AI ethics department. They still have AI ethics in smaller departments, but they don't have a major person that's like guiding the force anymore.
It's funny. The company that I thought would be the most ethical around AI started laying off AI ethicists years back, and that was Google. And I think actually Google probably has been the most ethical around AI so far, although Google's been using AI in search for over a year now, and we're not entirely sure how they're using it. We know that they're using it in understanding user query and user intent, but that's pretty much all they've told us about it. You know what I mean? The approach Microsoft is taking is one of those more anarchic, throw it up in the air and see how many people knock it against the wall sort of approaches. But what happened to researchers like Timnit Guru and other ethicists? There was another ethicist at Google, Margaret Mitchell. Both of them questioning AI bias and wanting to slow down research until guardrails could be put up to prevent bias from seriously affecting whatever process the AI is working on. Well, both lost their jobs for that.
Yeah, well, as Platformer reported from the people that talked to at Microsoft that were let go from that role, when it gets in the role, it gets in the way of profits. It's quick to ignore the ethicists, which is common, in companies. So I don't know. I do think that Google's been more responsible. I hear a lot of people saying Google's behind the 8 ball, but I actually don't think they are. They're the ones who developed the tech that all this stuff has been built on, like the transformers, which revolutionized the ability to do large language models, was developed by Google. Their paper on dilettantes is where OpenAI came from. So I think Google just is doing it more responsibly. Like they're releasing AI among all their apps and their programs, and that's how they're going to start releasing it, which to me is a more responsible way to do it. It's a tool, it's an assistant. It's going to help you work with their programs and their apps, and it's going to help hopefully make search better. But not releasing it to the masses, like here's this tool you don't understand and do whatever you want with it, I think was a more irresponsible way. So I do think there's probably people at Google that are still putting guardrails on it because their first response to ChatGPT wasn't to launch something in response.
I'm just all for somebody making the help feature actually helpful.
Yeah, that too.
That sounds good to me. If AI
Clippy,
can do that,
come on,
I'm all for it.
Bring Clippy back as AI. I'd love to have Clippy back as AI. It'd be awesome.
Yeah, I think that's a metaphor that Microsoft wants us all to avoid as much as possible. And if you want to be invited to the next Microsoft party, you'll stray away from that one too.
I liked Clippy. Clippy was cute.
Well, somebody had to.
If anybody's young enough that they're like, what the heck is Clippy? Just Google it. It used to be an assistant on Microsoft programs that was there to supposedly help you. It was a little Clippy and a paperclip animation with a face. So that was Clippy.
That was Clippy. And you know what? That's our hour. We've been fully around the clock and we're at the top again. And that was a really fun show. From banking to Google to SEOpoly. SEOpoly. I really hope Jef actually brings that game to North America. I don't know what was going to happen. I got the feeling it wasn't going to happen, but I really hope it does.
Me too. It sounds like fun. It sounds like something we'd play at a conference at the Center Bar.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I would.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. We got to go. You should put that online too. $5 for that idea, Jef. You should put that online. On behalf of Kristine Schachinger from Sites Without Walls, this is Jim Hedger from Digital Always Media. You've been listening to Webcology on WMR.FM, recorded live to podcast on the 16th of March, 2023. Happy St. Patrick's Day. And for those of you who survived the Ides of March, congratulations. Stay well, rank well, do good, and we will talk to you next week.
Bye, everybody.
The opinions expressed on this program are those of the guests and hosts and do not necessarily reflect those of WebmasterRadio.fm's management or sponsors. Any rebroadcast or redistribution without authorized consent of WebmasterRadio.fm is prohibited.